Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan Lugo. Thanks so much for tuning in here on Monday, January 22nd. Happy Monday to all y'all out there. Hopefully you enjoyed some playoff football this weekend. Unfortunately, your Jaguars, they are not there. They are in the midst of some pretty big changes this offseason, as we have seen already. We will continue to see how this offseason plays out for the Jaguars, but it should be an intriguing one, no doubt about it. One thing I do know right now, the Jaguars have a wide receiver situation. Christian Kirk, he's obviously locked and loaded as your starting slot receiver, as a guy that can be a go-to target for Trevor Lawrence moving forward. Zay Jones is under contract for 2024, but the Jaguars would get significant cap relief by moving on. For me, Zay Jones has performed like an average, maybe a little below average wide receiver 3 during his time in Jacksonville and throughout his career, quite frankly. Plenty of highs, but plenty of lows as well from Zay Jones. So I think the Jaguars obviously have some things to address in their wide receiver room, and we're going to dive into that here today. Look at some potential free agents the Jaguars could land or could try to land this upcoming offseason if they want to try to upgrade that room for Trevor Lawrence and make sure he's surrounded, with the best possible talent to try to succeed on the offensive side of the ball, to get a room that is not going to be among the league leaders in drops again this year, not going to be among the league leaders in EPA lost on drops, right? So beyond what you have with Christian Kirk, and we can include Zay Jones because he is still on the roster, right? There are no veterans. Calvin Ridley, he is set to be a free agent. He's not on the roster, okay? Jamal Agnew, set to be a free agent, not on the roster. You do have some younger guys that are unproven at wide receiver, guys I like, Parker Washington, Elijah Cooks. But again, unproven, not guys you want to run into the start of the 2024 season with them being featured in your plans super heavily. Neither of those guys is going to be like a top target for you entering 2024. So wanted to look at some free agents. We're going to do that here today. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You can also check out genjag.com/shop. Pick up some Duval throwback gear. We've got some sweatshirts, some t-shirts, lots of fun stuff up there right now. Obviously, a lot of hats. Check it out, genjag.com/shop. So for me, again, based on where the Jaguars are at wide receiver, they've got to make a move, a big move. Either in free agency or very early on in the draft, maybe both, right? You cannot go into 2024 without giving Trevor Lawrence significant help at wide receiver, in my opinion. I don't think that the Jaguars are going to sign Ridley prior to the start of free agency or prior to the NFL draft, because then you have to give up a second-round pick for him, right? And I just don't see how the Jaguars can foil that with all the rest of the roster needs that they have right now. So I do believe Ridley will either be under the franchise tag by the Jaguars, which is not a new contract, or he'll be set to hit free agency. We'll see how it plays out. He's obviously one of the guys that they could attempt to bring in, again, via franchise tag. They could sign him, but that would shock me. That would absolutely shock me if they signed him prior to the draft and they then gave up a second-round pick in order to do so. If they don't sign him or if they tag him, they're probably giving up a third-round pick, which, again, tough to stomach, but it is what it is. That's the cost of doing business, right? Let's look at some impending free agents from other teams. Many of them are likely to stay where they are. That's how free agency goes. You get all excited every year about all these impending free agents, and then most of them end up staying home. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't take a look, because there's a good chance one of these guys, maybe a couple of these guys, do hit free agency, and the Jaguars have to take a hard, long look. So, Tee Higgins. I believe he is one of the top free agents, regardless of position. There are so many reasons that he would make sense for the Jaguars. But the Bengals, they do have a lot of cap space. A lot of cap space. And they also do have several big free agents that they have to sign or look at signing. So, yeah, Tee Higgins, maybe they don't bring him back. They have been a team that is fairly stingy with their money throughout their history. They also do have Jamar Chase coming up that they're going to have to sign at receiver. So maybe they say, we'll save that money, the big wide receiver money, for Jamar Chase in the future. We'll see. But if Higgins does hit free agency, he makes sense for the Jaguars for so many reasons. He's a big-bodied target who can go get the tough catches. He has a long history of success in college with the Jaguars quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. Ever heard of him? Yes, they played at Clemson together, and I'm all for putting this Clemson Tigers team from back in the day back together here in Jacksonville, because these guys that were on that team, I mean, Tee Higgins, Christian Wilkins, they are big time NFL players. And I think Tee Higgins, at only 25 years old, the best years of his career should be upcoming. He should be hitting his prime right now. I think he'd be a worthy investment in the low to mid 20 millions per year. I think that's probably what he's going to end up getting. I would guess in the mid 20s. And, I think that it would be a worthy investment. Is he a true wide receiver one? I'm not sure. But would he be the closest thing to a true wide receiver one the Jaguars have on their roster? Absolutely. But I do think there's no doubt about he could give you a guy that can win contested catch situations, a guy that could go up and get the football, a guy that could be a more reliable red zone target than anyone you have. And he just brings toughness. He's a physical football player, and he brings chemistry and rapport with Trevor Lawrence. So I think that would be huge for the Jaguars if they were able to pull that off. You've also got Mike Evans, who is the freak of all freaks at wide receiver, right? I mean, unbelievable length and catch radius, and a guy who has been the model of consistency year to year. But he is up there in age. And again, I know I repeat myself, but is Tampa really going to let him walk? I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. But Mike Evans, if he did hit free agency, while he's older and he's not going to be able to have a long career likely with Trevor Lawrence, although it doesn't look like he's slowing down, if he was able to hit free agency, if you were able to bring him in, I think he would absolutely upgrade your roster and give you an unbelievable talent at receiver. So I would not be mad about that. Michael Pittman Jr. would be a good fit for what the Jaguars need as well. He's big, he's strong, he's tough. He can get the tough yardage. He can haul in some contested catches for you. He is entering his prime as well. Stealing from within the division is always fun, but are the Colts going to let him walk? I don't know. I think Michael Pittman Jr. would be a great fit for the Jaguars, though. You've also got Marquise Hollywood Brown, who I don't know if I would say he would be redundant necessarily, because he can be a 3-level threat. He can get deep for you, unlike anyone else on the roster currently. But he's also another smaller receiver. He would be the smallest receiver you have, and that's saying a lot for the Jaguars wide receiver room. I would rather have him than not have any of these free agents that we've talked about, but he is certainly on the bottom of the list so far because he's just not a big-bodied target that's going to help you in these contested catch situations as much as some of these other guys would, and not going to give you a guy that Trevor feels like he can just throw the football up to in a third down situation, in the red zone, etc. But can he add explosiveness to your offense? Yeah. And he's never been like a big drop guy, not dropped a lot of passes throughout his career overall. So I could see it being not the fit that fans would necessarily be super excited about, but a fit that could work because he's going to bring more speed than you have. He's faster than any receiver you have by a wide margin. He's got solid hands overall. He can get deep. He's still fairly young himself. So I could see it working with the Jaguars and Marquise Hollywood Brown, but it would be one of those moves where it's like really another small receiver for fans, but I could see it working. And beyond that, there's not a whole lot else that really feels like a good bet. I mean, there are certainly players that you could bring in as depth pieces, as role players within your offense to give you depth, to give you veteran depth that you don't really have. But beyond those guys we just mentioned, I don't think there's any frontline starters among this group of potential free agent wide receivers. And now, are there teams out there that could potentially decide they want to move on from some veteran players, and then you have more free agents hitting the market than you expected? Yeah, that is certainly very possible. We'll see how that plays out. But as of right now, the guys that are scheduled to hit free agency at wide receiver, it's not a huge list. The list of guys we just talked about is impressive, right? I mean, Tee Higgins, Mike Evans, obviously Michael Pittman Jr., and Hollywood Brown, they would all upgrade the Jaguars wide receiver talent significantly. And obviously Calvin Ridley, if you're able to figure out that situation. I think all those guys would bring legitimate starting skill sets to the Jaguars wide receiver room. But beyond that, I don't think there's any diamond in the rough potential starting receiver. There's guys that can provide depth. There's guys that can be role players, but that's about it at this point. So would love to know what you guys think about this potential wide receiver free agent class, where you would like to see the Jaguars go if these guys do end up hitting free agency. You can hit me up on Twitter at Jordan DeLugo. You can also drop a comment in the comment section below. If you enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and also check out genjag.com/shop if you want to support the channel further. Pick up some Duval gear. Really appreciate y'all. Have a good one.